Welcome to Living Well. Thank you for joining us for another segment of how to live well, not only now, but for eternity. Today, we have a wonderful presentation about healing while dealing. And so Elder Darryl Banks, who is the first elder at the Mount Calvary in Daytona Beach, Florida. I met him a couple of months ago in April at a health retreat down there. He's going to be our presenter. But I do want to remind you that this is for educational purposes only. You're going to hear some amazing information today. Feel free to take notes. But in the event there's something specific to your own personal health, you may want to talk to your physician, your counselor, your pastor, or dear friend. But we do not diagnose. We don't assess or treat any medical or non-medical conditions. We just want you to know how to live well. And so today we're excited to want to hear more about how we can heal from the inside out, even though we may be dealing. So Elder Banks, want to just say welcome to you. Want to say welcome to all of you who are online today. I'm going to turn over to you, Elder Banks. Thank you so much for saying yes to share this very important topic. This whole month we've been talking about outlook. So you're actually putting the icing on the cake, if you will, because this is our last Sabbath in the month of July. And so let's hear what you have to say about healing while dealing.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Sankey.
You're
Sister
welcome.
Emerlyn. I want to say that the Daytona Beach Mount Calvary Seventh-day Adventist Church has been using this program as part of our Sabbath worship every week. We had some troubles the other week ago, but we've been using this program every week as part of our day of worship. So we're excited to be a part of this anyway, and we appreciate what comes out from the content. Healing while dealing. Let's jump right in. The longer you hold something, the heavier it becomes. A psychologist once walked around the room while teaching a stress management course, and she raised a glass of water. Everyone expected her to ask is the glass half empty or is the glass half full question. Instead, she asked, how heavy is this glass of water? The audience caught out answers that ranged from 8 ounces to 20 ounces. She replied that the absolute weight doesn't really matter. What matters is how long I hold it. If I hold it for a minute, it's not a problem. If I hold it for an hour, I have an ache in my arm. If I hold it for a day, my arm will feel numb and paralyzed. In each case, the weight of the glass doesn't change, but the longer I hold it, the heavier it becomes. She continued to say that the stresses and worries in life are like that glass of water. Deal with them for a little while and nothing happens. Deal with them for a little bit longer and they begin to hurt. And if you deal with them all day long, day in and day out over time, you'll feel paralyzed, incapable of doing anything because of the weight of the worries. If I can have the first slide up, healing while dealing. Do I have those slides? I'm not used to seeing how they're going to show up there. Healing while dealing, she's showing the screen. Healing while dealing. Healing while facing life each day may seem like a dream to some people. It may appear too risky, as in, is it taking all the energy I have to get through this day? Is like, if I start trying to deal with my other issues in life, will I have enough energy to get through the day? But there is a new energy, a new joy that occurs, not as when you reach a long, sought after destination and you're happy, but when after so many long years of struggles and worries that you finally see what they call the light at the end of the tunnel. When you find yourself on that pathway, the joy already starts to begin. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's fitting that I share this acronym right now with everybody who's waiting to see what I'm really talking about, what the real topic is, where I'm going with this. The acronym being HOPE. You can go back out. What I'll do, sisters, I'll state the name of the next slide when it's time to change. I was trying to figure that out, so I wrote it in my thing, okay? So when I'm ready for the next slide, I'll say the title. Okay, so I want to share this acronym right now for the word HOPE. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, at least we can all appreciate this. The acronym means H for hope is hold, O for hope is on, P for hope is pain, E for hope is ends. Hold on, pain ends. You begin to taste the promises of God you had only until now Hope applied to you. You beget the promises like in Matthew 11:28, when God says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. There's promises like the one found in 1 Peter 5:10 that says, this prayer, may the God of all grace, who has called us to its eternal glory by Christ Jesus, after you have suffered a while, perfect, establish, strengthen, and settle you. Now, the serenity prayer, slide, the serenity prayer is speaking about healing. So I share the serenity prayer because it's a recovery type topic today. And if you're not familiar with recovery principles, one very similar common principle in a lot of recovery programs is the serenity prayer. But this prayer is a little bit different. This is a prayer for peace. Now, if anyone is seeking peace, then it's a good prayer. Because as a prayer for peace, think of peace this way. When you have found that you are just not able to control your environment enough that you can have peace around you, but when you search for a spot, any spot you can go to just to get a few moments peace, but it doesn't seem like it lasts long enough. Think of the peace here as we think of the Jewish word shalom. The Jewish word shalom is more about, is not the absence of strife, as in everything goes well, but it's more that you have, and you're filled with the presence of the positive blessing that we recognize in Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit in our life. It's a peace from within, what they describe as peace in the midst of the storm. So we can have that while the storm still rages, we can gain that peace with God's help. So here I offer the serenity prayer, and I offer the long version, as you see there. I don't know if you can read the words, but it's God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, and trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender my will unto you, that I may be reasonably happy in this life, and of course, supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. So, well, Christians ask the next question, am I my brother's keeper? Now we're getting to the meat of the program. Am I my brother's keeper? Slide next. We should all be able to relate to the fact that there's an imbalance in the world. Can I have the next slide there? We should all be able to relate to the fact that there's an imbalance in the world. Am I my brother's keeper? There you go. The world is not the way God meant for it to be, nice and balanced and steady. We don't have equilibrium. It's shaky sometimes. All of this is not the way God intended. But we can, if we look for it through God, find a homeostasis that can be restored and the peace obtained in our healing. It all begins with the effects of sin. But let me go back a second. Am I my sister or brother's keeper? Because some may not know why this topic is important to them. Martin Luther King said, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. So how we got this way is on the next slide. It all begins with the effects of sin. Brokenness. God created a perfect, solid, together, and together, sister, together, brother world. But sin created brokenness. It created disconnection from God and from each other. So we look at it and we look at Genesis 3:7, and we see the mental brokenness, which we all remember of the shame of being naked. In Genesis 3:8, we're already quickly into spiritual brokenness. Now they're fearing God and hiding from him. The Genesis 3:11 and 12, relational brokenness. We starting to blame others and distrust. Genesis 3:16 through 19, we see the physical, mental, and relational curses. So I'm jumping right in right now. If you hit the next slide, it's the slide for American Society of Addictive Medicine. Here is a definition for addiction. Now, a reminder to those few that may be fighting the feeling off that this is, natural desire says this is not about me. But if you just hang in there with me, I'm hoping to touch, some people, okay? So instead of comparing ourselves to everything up front, if we try to relate first, we might find it might bring us into the picture, into the frame, okay? So this is not easy, but I know there's people, and I mentioned addiction, so there's people that might say, I'm not a junkie, I wouldn't even deal with people like that. I would never even hang with somebody who's a loser or a drug addict. Yet someone else might have one of their loved ones' face come to mind when they hear the term addiction. Maybe someone in their family, maybe some way, this might be of an interesting topic for just that alone. But I think it'll touch all of us if we just keep paying attention. So hang in there with me. Addiction is a primary chronic disease of brain reward. Very important. Motivation, memory, and related circuitry. Dysfunction in these circuits leads to characteristic biological, psychological, social, and spiritual manifestations. This is reflected in an individual pathologically pursuing reward and or relief by substance use and or other behaviors. We explore here the concept of the pathway being taken. Here we find ourselves looking at addiction, hopefully from a different way. So if you flip to the next screen, which is addiction types. Addiction types, utilizing the definition on the next slide. That definition we just used, what you'll find here is we find there are two different major types of addictions: substance use and process and behavior. If you can see that, okay, I'll just tell you what it says. I'm just going to read across the top. The substance use type of addiction is of tobacco, of alcohol, illegal drugs. Now, reading to its right, process and behavior addictions are gambling, sex, computer gaming, internet, pathological skin picking, food, and binge eating. But yet, even though we see those as being kind of bad, and no, we're never one of those types. Down below, I want to go left to right again, and of the substance use types, there's a few that are viewed more innocently, being prescription drugs or opioid use. You know, we kind of understand people who had pain and they took pain pills, they took too much, whatever. But let's look more interesting about the ones under process behavior. There are addictions that are viewed positively: workaholism, relationships, shopping, ministry. There's one I guess is cut off there on my slide. I wasn't perfect on it, but it's called acquisitiveness. I don't know if anyone knows what acquisitiveness is, but acquisitiveness is the fact of somebody trying so hard to gain material good, to get stuff, to make money. And while that may be looked at very positively, it can be for sure an addiction. The next screen, please. Next slide, Dr. Jennifer. The next slide after that, that was the bottom of it, sorry.
I'm not sure why I'm having difficulty. Is that it?
Do you have one for we may have flattered ourselves?
This is it. This is the order I have.
Let's stop there. That's perfect. Okay, perfect. Yep. Okay, so it says it right there. Okay, I got that's perfect. Okay. I got some. I may have some problems. All right, but the fact of the matter is, I don't have those problems. Well, here's where we start trying to really want to ask God to help us tell us about ourselves and not about somebody else. We have to deal with these. They're called the defense mechanisms: minimalization, blaming, justification, just like in the garden. The other one's denial. The key is this: it's not what we turn to, it's that we turn. Remembering that brain rewards is what we're really talking about. The rewards we give ourselves when we find ourselves in addiction. So we turn to these things over and over again. So it's not the fact of what we turn to, it's that we turn. Turning away from God for our answers brings us all the same results. Turning to people, places, or things only brings examination when the consequences appear negative. Consequences are really neither good nor bad. They are simply the result of our choices and actions. So even when they're positively viewed, someone thinks the workaholic is great. Oh, they work so hard. They're so good. They're a good person. Someone thinks someone who's acquisitive is good. Oh, they're just building a dynasty over there. They're making everything. But yet we look at the rich who have so much and just can't stop because they really have a problem. Thank you. Next slide. We may have flattered ourselves, I hope. I love this quote. I hope this quote comes up right. Yes, this is a quote from Steps to Christ, chapter 3, the chapter Repentance. It's on page 28. We may have flattered ourselves, as did Nicodemus, that our life has been upright, that our moral character is correct, and think that we need not humble the heart before God and sinner. But when the light from Christ shines into our souls, we shall see how impure we are. One more slide, sister. What's our method? So typically what we've done in our lives is we kind of try to work our way to God, and we may join prayer groups, we may, be devoted church members, devoted church, serving in church and everything. But there's not enough positions in church to save us. There's not enough positions in church to calm the savage beast that's in our soul. There's not enough positions in church, or not enough prayer meetings or prayer lines. You start at 5 a.m. and go to one at the next night, just praying all the time. There's not enough prayer lines to heal that. At some point, we're living. That's why the topic is healing while dealing. We go through life and we have to face life each day, and it's tough sometimes. When we're carrying extra weight, that can make the burden even heavier. So I mentioned that we may have flattered ourselves, because if we have any of those types of addictions in any way, shape, or form, it's more than we need to be carrying. So up to now, we've worked hard at trying to do our best to get closer to God. And I'm not condemning any activity. I'm saying sometimes when we find it doesn't work, we're missing something. So the fact is, there are no shortcuts. The elevator is out of order. We find on this journey that we take the steps. There's no shortcut. Sometimes we get so busy trying to get out of our wilderness that we quickly rush right past the flowers that God has placed along the pathway to remind us that he's there with us. Just keep following through. So along the journey, please appreciate and stop to admire the color purple. I say this now. If I had a big enough problem, I would have already taken care of it by now. Why do you think I wouldn't take care of it? Well, I'll tell you this. I don't know how many of us know this, but July, this month, is Black Mental Health History Month, Black Mental Health Month. Now, do we think that people of color as a group technically deal with many of our internal problems very well? That we get the help that we need, that we tell somebody else, or that we share this? We actually don't have a lot of help when things internally go out of order. Most of our first reactions is to try to fix up outside so that we don't have to talk about it or think about it. So for African Americans, a lot of us, what we do is we go to church. What we don't realize is I just talked about all the church services and positions in the world. Simply going to church doesn't replace engaging in the steps of the healing process. Yet even cooler, we should ask ourselves this question. If there's healing out there in the world and it really works for people, why isn't there true healing in the church? What happens when Christians want to heal? Why do we claim to be a hospital for the sick, but yet we don't have anything that deals with anything like that? But we do. And I'll talk about that a little more in a minute before I close, okay? Okay, so one reason we don't talk about things in church is because it's a scary place because of stigma. I think that's the next slide, doctor. Do I have the stigma slide in there still? I don't know if I left it. Stigma. What is stigma? Stigma is that thing that happens when people look at us, and actually, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead, so stay with me though on stigma. Stigma is when people look at us and we feel they judge us. We feel they think bad about us. If I have a problem, it's bad enough, but if people think I have a problem, that somehow is worse. So I won't do anything about it because I don't want anyone to think I have a problem. This world is becoming increasingly more about judging people by their outsides and less about our hearts. The trick to watch is those who seem to be constantly shining the light on another person or another group and their problems is most of the time just trying to keep the light off of them. So what you end up is we're down, feeling down, and we find ourselves judging our insides by other people's outsides. And what we're actually getting really is their masked emotion, their years of hurt and guilt buried beneath a nice suit or a perfect fitting dress that they're wearing. So fear of becoming stigmatized is what sadly leads to the old phrase, some people will lose their lives to save their faces. In this case, we do need to recognize that applies to this life and the next. Now, the next slide is, this is Christ's method. Thank you, doctor. Now I'm starting to wrap up and come down with this. This is Christ's method. But first I share this with you. A broken leg, where do you go? Doctor, right? You get an x-ray. He orders a cast. Then you do physical therapy to heal. And you continue to exercise to keep it strong. A toothache. The dentist, right? He fixes you up begins the plan of curing he shares with you. He's going to tell you, you don't like that pain. I don't want you to have that pain. This is what you should do. And we start doing it, and we keep doing it because we don't want to go back to that pain. Obsessions, compulsions, and addictions, hurts, bad habits, and hangups. Well, the enemy has made us feel like we are the only ones who are dealing with these. Remember, we're judging our insides by other people's outsides. So we develop and live by the plan, just try to do our best to not let others see we are trying to bury the pain. We're not really even attempting to deal with it anymore. We just don't want to admit that it's there. So we say things like, I know I lived with a narcissist who abused our entire family growing up, but I solved that problem when I went up to Oakwood my freshman year and never went home again. I got married and had a family. I don't have that problem anymore. That problem is back there. Problem solved, right? No, wrong. We just don't have an answer to it, so we attempt to bury it deeper. You only hope that nobody else sees them and they go on. This is where dealing with life while healing from hurt comes in. Remembering there's no shortcuts. I often remind you of the acronym HOPE, hold on, pain ends. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, Christ's method in reaching people. Very important. Christ's method alone will give true success in reaching the people. The Savior mingled with men as one who desired their good. Hear that? The Savior mingled with men as one who desired their good. Didn't desire what he wanted for them, except we know in Jesus' way that what he wanted for them was the best. But we have to understand that we can't just do what we think is best for somebody for what our way is. But the Savior mingled with men as one who desired their good. He showed his sympathy for them, ministered to their needs, and won their confidence. Then he bade them, follow me. That quote is from the book Ministry of Healing on page 143. The next slide, doctor. So I tell people all the time, the next slide, we covered stigma already. I guess I had that out of place. Next slide, please. There's two principles in emotional healing. Two principles. First, although God can and does heal instantaneously, most healing is incremental. Second, God is more interested in our growth in the long run than he is in making us feel better now, in this instant. See, we sometimes think we're a short story. I don't know. I don't want to say anyone's perception of God is wrong or faith is wrong, because God can heal how he wants to heal. But I know that God heals with lessons intended for a better life going forward. So you put that together with what I'm talking about here with the principles of emotional healing. And most of the cases, I like the statement that says, God is more interested in our growth in the long run than he is in making us feel better right now. So I tell people it's a journey. It's a process. I, myself, am a work in process, the sanctification process. See, God's healing is complete in God the second he does it. But sometimes he leaves it for us to go through the steps in a process so we get the proper lessons that not only we can use to help ourselves, but we can maybe help somebody else with. Next slide. This is how it works. And I promise people this. If they practice these 12 steps while continuing to take the steps to Christ outlined in Sister White's book, they won't be able to change the past, but as God changes you, God will change the way you look at the past. You will find that the greatest miracle isn't just that you heal. How about that? It'd be great to heal. You will find that the great miracle is not just that your past no longer controls you. How wonderful that would be. You will find that not only is that not the only benefit, still the greatest miracle isn't just the fact that the terrorist that held you hostage has been forced by God to let his child go. That's still not it. This is what's so amazing. The greatest gift out of this whole thing is when God heals, there's no longer hurt people. It becomes, as we know and think about God's world, hurt people who are healed can then help people that are just like them that were hurt before. So you find that your freedom that you obtain from the terrorists, from being held hostage, has been only allowed to be there for God to come at this time. We had a great sermon today, the privilege of time. But God to come at this time to set you free so that you can help the next person. So you go back to help other people with the joy that you found. So I offer this text first, and then I'm going to close with this little quote from the Recovery Edition of Steps to Christ. The text is 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 5 through 7. For as the sufferings of Christ abound in us, so our consolation also abounds through Christ. Now, if we are afflicted, it is for your consolation and salvation, which is effective for enduring the same sufferings which we also suffer. Or if we're comforted, it is for your consolation and salvation. And your hope for you is steadfast, because we know that as you are partakers of the sufferings, so also you will partake of the consolation. Now, here's how it works. As I said, a few steps. I hope you're reading it as I'm talking. I'm not going to read through them right now, but there they are. Your 3 essential steps: admitting that we're powerless over our sinful nature, believing there's a power that's greater than us, that is God, Jesus Christ, the highest power, and then giving our will and our cares over to that higher power. You know, as Adventists, we say the back of our hands and our foreheads. But the steps talk about it as, you know, giving your will and your life. That's also our thoughts and our actions. For it is God who works in us to will and to do of his good pleasure. Ephesians 2:10. Can you move to the next slide, sister? I'm just going to read this introduction from the Recovery Edition of Steps to Christ real quick, as we get ready to cover the Journey to Holiness program and this Recovery Edition of Steps to Christ. This is just a blurb in the foreword. The book Steps to Christ has helped millions walk a journey from brokenness to wholeness in Christ. Many in their journey to recovery from addictions and codependency have also found incredible help in the 12-step approach, especially when Christ is recognized as the highest power. This special edition of Steps to Christ describes how the 12 steps of recovery relate to the important principles of this book, providing a practical understanding of how we can experience freedom, peace, and wholeness in Christ despite our brokenness. Our best efforts are like ropes of sand, but the power of Christ can saturate our minds and lives in our quest for recovery from addictions and sin. On the pages of this instructive, reassuring, and beautifully written book, you will rediscover the blessing of prayer, of surrender, of searching your heart and finding reconciliation with God and others. You can also have the peace that comes from being forgiven and from forgiving those who have hurt you. As you prayerfully read these pages, you will rediscover your purpose in life and find new confidence grounded in Christ to bless others in your journey. We strongly recommend that anyone interested in growing spiritually use the Bible, this Steps to Christ Recovery Edition, and the Journey to Wholeness Guide featured on the cover of this book. These are practical and indispensable guides for overcoming addictions, unhealthy compulsions, sinful tendencies, and character defects. We are reminded that the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom, there is liberty. 2 Corinthians 3:17. May you experience joy, contentment, hope, peace, and love of God, knowing that you can do everything through him who gives you strength. Philippians 4:13. This is our prayer. And that piece was written in the foreword by Dr. Peter Landless and Dr. Katia Reiner, a champion of this program, the 12-step program. So what is the Adventist Recovery Ministries? That's what the Recovery Edition of Steps to Christ is. What is the Adventist Recovery Ministries? The Journey to Holiness program is a resource to help people break free from obsessive thoughts, compulsive behaviors, and destructive habits and addictions and sins. It provides tools for character development, resulting in emotional and spiritual growth. And I believe this is the last slide, Doctor. Oh, even better. I'm sorry, just a little bit more, because I think you have some information on this. When in an atmosphere of Christian love and acceptance, people meet each week and become openly honest with each other in a safe place where anonymity and confidentiality are respected. Participants are asked to share their experience, strength, and hope without crosstalk and judgmentalism. They are not to try to fix each other. Seventh-day Adventist people. They are not to try to fix each other. Rather, they are to let go and let God go do for them what they cannot do for themselves. And I do think this is the last slide. Next slide. Yes, the journey into eternity begins with the first step. The first step, the first words that Jesus spoke on the Sermon on the Mount: blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Meaning, recognizing our spiritual poverty is the pathway to fulfilling and developing and showing us our need for Jesus, and in so doing, our search for Jesus and a closer walk with him. So we take the steps to Christ. Again, I try to put a lot in to keep some interest in all the different parts of it, but it's a much longer program to do than that. So thank you for giving me a chance to give you little bit pieces, and I hope hope it tickles some fancies and you want to know more sometime. Thank you, Doctor.
Wow, Elder Banks, you covered a lot of information, healing while dealing. And I think when we, kind of look back over what you talked about, is many times those unresolved issues in our early life or throughout life, if we don't deal with them, could lead to addictions, is what I was hearing you say. There's several things that can kind of lead to behaviors just to try to fill a gap, but it will never fill the gap until we actually get to know who Jesus is and get to know him personally. But I found it interesting. I think
Doctor, thank you. May I say this very quickly? Just
yeah,
on that note, I had the ACE study in there because that's really important, the average childhood experiences. But you just kind of touched on it. There's so much that happens to us that we are unaware of. It's not our fault. So we don't take it, we don't need to be fault-based lives. Things happen to us and we carry them. That's the problem.
absolutely. But the thing is sometimes we never recall them until we begin to act a certain way. And maybe those behaviors are not acceptable, or it affects our relationships, right? Or it affects our desire to even want to achieve things. So many times people don't know themselves until something happens, like there's a trigger. There may be a trigger or something like that that occurs. And then you begin to say, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why am I acting like that? And then you begin to recall maybe an unpleasant, like you said, an adverse experience, whether it was in childhood or adulthood, that may have contributed. I'm just going to say contributed to that, because we can choose how we think and behave. But I found really interesting that we judge people, the inside of people, by the outside. So if we're dressed up and looking really nice or whatever, people think you're a great person, but inside there could be a lot of mental, spiritual brokenness, relational brokenness. And so the question, I know that you kind of went over it, but how do we begin to do a self-assessment of ourselves before we get that trigger that make us act out of our character? Because that's really what happens.
Amen, amen. And I'm happy to answer that. I want to say this: fish don't know that they're wet.
Okay.
So when we're raised in certain situations, we may never be able to look back and know something happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
We may just react a certain way in the future, never knowing anything happened.
Mm-hmm.
Fish don't know they're wet. They're just fish. So they don't have any control over that. And children, as we're shaped and formed, and as we grow, we don't know those things, and we don't know that we need to be dealt with. But as far as that, that's what the 12 steps are all about, to answer your question. That is what the assessment is. I think it's one of the great philosophers that said, a life does not self-examine, does not examine, is not a life worth having. We have to look at some point. In Psalms 139, 23, and 24 says, search me, O Lord, and show me. We have to look. Too many of us do okay. We feel okay. We don't have any problems. Doesn't seem like we have any problems in the front. So we feel we don't have to look. But the fact of the matter is, looking is good. We all take a look in the mirror before we leave the house. So that's the external part. To keep healthy, we need to take some physical checkups sometimes. Mm-hmm. And the doctor tells us some things. But spiritually, what this is all about, what the 12 steps are all about, are that look. The ability to look non-judgmentally. Stop worrying about what the world thinks. Look to see what God is trying to show you about yourself, your relationships, how to heal, just what it is, and whether you pinpoint a certain thing in your past, or if you have an addiction of some sort, like I said, whether it was substance abuse or process, it didn't matter. There's some things we have to directly deal with, but we never deal with them if we don't look. I think people who have done public speaking have had the fun of someone doing the experience. When you talk and you say how many times you said in a 5-minute period, but you never knew it if you didn't look. If somebody wasn't looking and helping you look, you would never realize you said 37 times in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's just that simple. They're not always that huge, but they can add up, which is why I started out the way I did. These things add up over time. And the best thing to do is if we can look at them, we can expel them. And so that way, it's not something we have to worry about coming in our future. No, we're not carrying what we had to carry from our past. So yes, it's in the 12 steps is how we do an assessment. It's an assessment process that's done in the step process.
So how do you get someone to this program who, now granted, we all probably could benefit from it, but how do you get them there? Because many people don't think they have a problem and they think they're doing just fine. And so how do you, what does that conversation look like? Or
Okay.
so tell me, Elder Banks, what is it like? How do we give them the?
Sometimes it's by hook or by crook. How about, you know what? Have you ever been in, hear someone walk up and say, oh, that sermon was so good that my brother would have really benefited by that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes they say, you know what, since you want to help your brother out all the time, you might want to check this program out. Maybe there's something you can tell him, go back and tell him so he'll come. So I've gotten people to that program that way. You see what it's like, so you can go back and tell them what it is, and then that way they're there. Because the key to it is the simple honesty that none of us are perfect. All of our righteousness is filthy rags. We all can improve in some areas. And if being kinder and seeing myself and knowing more about myself is not a hurtful thing with God leading it. So that can benefit anybody. But yes, we also may have a few hangups that, if you don't think you have any hangups, ask your partner. If you don't think you have anything that's a little bit off, ask your mate. If you don't think so, ask some of your church members. Ask the people that you're around. They'll say, well, I'm so open. People are always voluntarily telling me mine. So I guess that helps me in some way. But there's a process that I think you might be aware of. It's called Johari's window. From Joe and Harry, they wrote it about people. We have blind spots. We can't see behind us. I can't see. I usually say the nose one, but I'll say I can't see the spinach in my teeth. I'm just talking away, feeling great about myself. I don't have any problems. And then someone might kindly, if a friend steps up, they'll kindly say, hey, you got. So we do better with other people. So the process of this is a group process. And as we explore and grow, and someone asked me why I had to prepare for this, and I laughed, and I thought about it. I said, you know why? Because this is a continuously growing process. This is not a one and done. I completed. I read the Bible. I'm good. I went to church. I'm good. This is a process about life as it grows and shows us more each day that we dare ask God to show us more about ourselves. But we do it together, kindly, and we do it anonymously and confidentially, and that itself builds a special bond.
Well, I think what's really good about it is we can heal. I think that the thing is, many times we figure that we can't get any better. So, meaning that if I've had a bad experience, it's just going to be a bad experience. But the fact that we can heal is really good. And then the last thing I want to say, I'm going to turn over to Emlyn, is about hurt people hurt people. And I think that we need to be mindful that when people are displaying behaviors that, there's something that's triggering that's something causing it, and that they could be hurting inside, and they maybe cannot verbalize it in a way that you can really understand. So maybe they're speaking sternly or loudly or whatever, but the reality is I think we have to have that sensitivity that you mentioned that Jesus had towards people, because really there's sometimes we see the behavior, but we don't see the person. We see the behavior, we hear the loud talking, the cussing, fussing, we hear that, right, but we're not interpreting that there's something deeper rooted, grounded in them that's causing the behavior. So I think for me, it's like step back and then, give them that space that they need. And then maybe you can approach them to see exactly what is the true issue. What is the issue? So I do appreciate you bringing that forward, because sometimes if someone hurt us, we're trying to go right back at them, right? We're not going to try to, but the reality is
this is very key. And this is very key because that's so on point. Everybody can't help everybody.
That's correct.
And everybody that has a problem can't help everybody with the same problem if they never healed from that problem. But the flip side is this, and I asked this because I loved one of your segments I was watching a couple weeks ago, but I know people that tell people that do drugs, just stop. I know people that have problems at home and say, just pray. I know people that say, these simple answers from their viewpoint. And I asked someone, and the young lady was going through some difficult situations, and people were getting on her about not leaving her husband who was abusing her. I said, yeah, anyone can see from the outside and say, these are all the reasons looking at him that you should go. Does anyone ever take the time to look at you and ask why you stay? You can't help me if you don't understand me. You don't know and you're not willing to find out. That's the trauma-informed care way of dealing with people. How about I find out why you stay? You know you should go. People are just talking to you to the blue in the face, but the answers you already know. He hurts you, it's not good, you shouldn't put up with it. He tells you he loves you, you let him back in. Why do you do it? But you don't really listen to why.
Mhm.
It's from their upbringing, their real love for the person, maybe. Maybe they were taught never to divorce. Maybe they're taught never to leave. Whatever it was, certain things are holding them. And until we get to those things, you can't help that person. So everybody can't help everybody. But the joy of this program and 12-step programs are you're there with other people who admit they need help. That's the common denominator. I think we all need help personally, but to be in a room or a group with people who everyone needs help, you don't feel less than the person next to you. You don't feel stupid when you say something. You don't feel dumb. You're like, oh, you're like, you know what? I did this thing. I've been smoking cigarettes in church for the 20 years I've been in church. I can't stop smoking cigarettes. I sneak out and whatever, I run home. You hear the most amazing things, and people get help with this. And it really changes lives for the simplicity of going, I don't have to hide that anymore. I can share that, let's heal that, and then go help other people. So that's a great joy.
Wow. Thank you so much, Elder Banks. Emma, let me turn it over to you. I know we have 1 minute, but I know that you have probably have some takeaways as well.
Well, I guess when he first opened up, when Elder Banks first opened up with that example about the glass, that really blew me away. You know, it seems so simple. The glass is full of water. It's not that heavy, but holding on to it for a longer period of time, it weighs, it becomes heavier. So holding on to issues or holding on to problems in our lives, staying, you know, in situations that we know that is not healthy, and you know, it becomes harder for us to leave or for us to change or whatever the situation might be. Holding on. So what I take away from it is once you find or realize that you're in a situation or there's a problem, is to deal with it right away. Do not let it sit and fester and it becomes harder for you to change, to make a decision to leave or to go and get help. So, you know, the same questions I was going to ask Elder Bank, you know, we know of people who need help. But the thing about it, even if you tell them they need help, sometimes they don't see that they need help. They think that they are fine. That's the hardest person to deal with. That's the hardest person to get to treatment. So what do you do?
Let me tell you, my great joy, the best thing to do is people who we look at that need help, they can't see it, tell them that even we need help. You go get it. You say, I know I could be as good as I am. There's still more available when I walk with Christ for me. And you know what? If there's going to be doing this and it unturn some things and it helps me unblock some lanes or do whatever else it was, guess what? I will go. So if you see me going and you know you don't maybe compare yourself to me as being that good, then okay, if you're going, then I know I gotta go. The first thing that helps someone else who needs help that doesn't go is say that I need help and go. Come to the program. I saw someone's chat. The name of the program is Adventist Recovery Ministries. It's called A Journey to Wholeness. There's a whole program for it. This was just a teaser. And I'm hoping that then Dr. Sankey gives me some opportunity further on with the Health Ministries team to maybe explore more options about when we can have them and where.
Right. So I was going to ask you, can you do this program online or do you have to come to a group? It has to be in a group setting. Do you go to different churches and do this? Or we have to come to Daytona to do this?
Everybody come to Daytona, but never because you're forced, because it's such a joy to come. And when you come, you want to come back. However, this program is best served regionally in different churches regionally. So I've had the pleasure of starting 5 different groups. I think out of the 10 right now that are on the Health Ministries website, 3 of them, I had a pleasure of being a part of their beginnings. So the thing of it is, we set them up in the church. I suggest if something is regional, maybe you might want to rotate per week. You know, one church this week, so everyone doesn't have the chance to have to drive the same distance each time. I would suggest, you know, maybe a 30 square mile radius, go to one church one week, one church the next, one church the next, one church the next. We probably get different people coming each time. I'm happy too, and I offer this to anybody. And I tell you right now, I told Dr. Sankey, I love this program. I love growing. I love getting closer with Christ. I love the joy and the freedom of sharing with other people and not looking at a life of going, what can I get from it? More is now about, oh, what can I share? What can I share? Because if I was a philanthropist, I'd hand out money, but I'm not. This is the best thing I have is to hand out Jesus and healing.
Man.
So I'm happy to help anyone start for any length of time it takes. I commit to being there weekly. You know, the worst case scenario is if I didn't have gas money, but if I have gas money, I'll be there already. But if you want to help me with gas, I'll come help me with gas. I'll be there.
So
I'll
is
have
there
to get started up
training?
and running and we'll show you the dynamics of the program.
So is there
Pardon?
training like the individual who
There's a
will
training on the Health
facilitate?
Ministry's website.
So
There's a training on the Health Ministry's website.
Okay, there's a
Dr.
training.
Angeline Brower talks about the training on the website. There's an online training. They have in-person trainings. I've been to 4 different trainings. I didn't have to go. I just like going. But there's a training for how to lead it. But also the thing of it is it's modeled after the AA program through the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, and the 12 concepts. Again, all much deeper that would be shared, you know, as you get going.
well, great. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you so much, Elder Banks. I'll give our audience an opportunity to ask a question. I know we're over by 4 minutes, but our audience may have a question, and I need to let you know if you ask a question, if you don't want your picture shown, you can actually close your camera off and also remove your names if that's, you know.
Let me share this. Let me share this very fastly. My contact information is always available. There's no hold up time. Anyone can call me. I don't answer every phone call, so leave a message. But anyone can have my information. My phone number is 315-314-1127. My email is facilchange@outlook.com. That's FACIL, like facilitate change @outlook.com. Anytime through Dr. Sankey, through Emily, anyway.
Thank you so much, Elder Banks. Wow, a lot of information. So, you know, I love the word hope. And so what we want to close out with is, you know, we want to give everyone hope because many of us want to be better than we are right now today, right? We really want to make sure that we make a lifestyle change. And as we on this program talk about living well, we really want to live a better life, mentally,
Amen.
physically, spiritually. We want to make sure that our lives are so enriched that we can change the world with goodness. And so thank you again, Elder Banks, and thank you, audience, for joining us. I'm actually going to stop the recording right now because we're going to just